friend that makes you really, really, really think about yourself and like, are you sure about that? Or how did that make you feel? Or, but why did you do that? Or wait, go back and talk about that one again. All of that to say, I really recommend therapy just in general. Hey, it's me, it's Dee. Welcome to my channel where you get to follow me around in my attempts of trying to adult. Today, since it is Mental Health Awareness Month, we're going to be talking about therapy. More specifically, my experience with finding a therapist. If you do not know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I meant to do a couple more videos. However, I did not plan them in advance. So instead, I will be doing more videos around this topic and similar things in July for Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. Yes, there are two separate months. Yes, they should be two separate months. Fight me. So we're going to start off with my first experience with trying to find a therapist, because I've had a therapist previously when I was younger and first diagnosed with Tourette's. However, the only thing that I really remember from that is refusing to talk to her and only wanting to play with the Barbie dolls.
No, we're not going out. I'm not in the mood.
So, adult therapy and child therapy are two completely different things. But anyway, let's hit it. The reason why I first ended up deciding to find a therapist actually was not because I was seeking out therapy. It was because I was trying to get a learning disorder or a learning ability test. I forget what the exact name of it is, so I'll put it here if I remember. But basically I was trying to figure out if I had a learning disorder because I was having a really tough time in college finishing tests and just comprehending everything at once, which I had never really experienced before. And after talking to my calculus teacher, she mentioned that she would only be able to give me additional time if I had a learning disability and filed with the, I don't even know what this office is called anymore because I've gone through so many changes, but basically it's the office that you go to if you have some sort of disability, be it a learning disability, a sight disability, a hearing disability, all those different things. This specific office, now I think it's the Student Accessibility Services office, handles all of that. But I didn't have an official diagnosis. I knew that I might be slightly dyslexic, but that was it. I had never had an official diagnosis, so in order to do this, I needed to be able to find a therapist to actually do this test. Now, if I knew what I knew now, this whole process probably would have gone a whole lot easier because I could have gone through my school. But the thing is that I actually contacted my school before I contacted anyone else, because Vanderbilt has one of the biggest child development programs in the country, and they do all sorts of learning testing at the Peabody School. However, the list to get into the Peabody School's testing facilities is ridiculously long. Mind you, I started looking for this in December or January of my freshman year, so 2016, 2017. I would not have been able to see anyone in Peabody until June. That's ridiculous. And I was like, that doesn't help me at all. And so, no, it was before that. I started looking like in November or October. It was October because I remember, we'll get to that part. So basically, I spent all of these weeks in October, basically the entire month of October, trying to find a therapist. I originally called the hospitals and figured out like if they had any sorts of testing. All of them told me something similar to what Vanderbilt told me, and that was that I would have to wait this ridiculously long amount of time. So then I decided to go through my insurance service. At the time, I had TennCare for kids because I was under 21, and so they covers only very specific types of therapy and for certain therapists. If you are on a similar program, you'll know what I'm talking about, because it's actually a really big issue that insurance programs often don't cover mental health services, which is stupid. Mental health is health. Like, it has health in the word. I don't understand what's not clicking, but they don't like paying for people's mental health services. And because of this, I was on the phone with the people from my insurance agency like every day for a week. And then every day for the next 2 weeks after that, I was calling each one of the doctor's offices that they gave me just to be told that they wouldn't take me because I was too old, they wouldn't take me because of all of these other random things, or that they didn't have any availability until 2022, which is ridiculous. I don't understand. All of that to say, I've seen some videos that talk about how finding a therapist is not hard, and I think that although that may be true for some people, that statement in itself can kind of feel isolating, since a lot of people don't think that therapy is already for them. So if they try to go and actually get a therapist and they're met with all of these blockades that are systematically put up there because insurance companies don't want to pay for it, it can really feel like you're being fought against and that it wasn't worth going against what you initially believed. So I just want to put that on the table. But eventually, I did find a therapist. I found a therapist who would actually take me, who had availability that month. He was only, like a 10-minute drive from the school. It was like an $8 Uber. It's great. All good. So this is also where I would like to go into the whole therapy is easy to find issue, because it's really not for a multitude of different reasons. So I'm gonna give demographics because I don't know if this was specifically the issue, but I know that the fact that I went to Vanderbilt specifically was an issue. But anyway, so the first therapist that I ended up going to was an older white man, and he had it looked like he had it wasn't like a home studio, it was in an office building, but basically he had his own practice and he wasn't with any hospital. And so the first thing that they do if they're doing a learning assessment like this is they ask you all of these different questions about why you think that you may have an issue, why you're looking for these things. And I was supposed to I think I had all of 2 appointments with him. And the reason why I only had 2 appointments with him is because in each of these appointments, he would ask me questions like, are you sure that you have a learning disability? How could you have gotten into Vanderbilt if you have a learning disability? I'm not sure if you really know what you're talking about. And all of these other things, and I'm like, how does the school that I'm going to have anything to do with my learning disability or anything like that? And basically he was saying that because I was a high achieving student, there was no way in the world that I could have a learning disability or a mental illness. And this is completely untrue. There are people who get into Vanderbilt who are already diagnosed with learning disabilities. And that not only goes for Vanderbilt, that also goes for any of the other top 20 or Ivy League universities in the United States and other places. So this is completely false, and it really annoys me that people think that is true. We're not going to get into the whole privilege thing because there's been a whole bunch of different issues going around with celebrities and other rich people talking about their mental health issues and people saying they can't have them because they have privilege, and I'm like, that's so stupid. Mental illnesses do not discriminate, and while yes, it may be easier to deal with them if you have money or access to insurance, it's completely ridiculous to try and discredit someone's mental illnesses or learning disabilities because of their status. Okay, so we go through this. Even though this man is really putting me off, I just need this done, and he was the only person who I could actually get in with. And so I set up a second meeting with him. Like I said, we go through a similar process. We do 1 or 2 actual tests, because the first test is just the first meeting is just like an intake, right? And so I'm supposed to have another meeting with him after winter break, and this is how I remembered that I started this process in October. And so when I got back from winter break, I tried calling him and emailing him, and this man does not return any of my messages, at all. And I'm like, what the heck? Thinking about it now, I honestly should have reported him, because I told one of my later therapists about this experience. She was like, what? So just know if you have an experience like that, that is not normal. It should not be like that. And if you go through that, you should definitely report it, because it's absolutely unacceptable to be treated like that by someone who is supposed to be helping you with mental health issues. So anyway, at this point I'm devastated, because it already took me like 3 months to be able to get to that process. And so I'm now starting my second semester after I've already had a really rough and bad academically first semester. And I have to continue doing this in second semester when my course load is ramping up and I'm starting to take more weed out classes and prereqs for my engineering degree, which was stressful. And so once again, I am calling different people, I'm looking through doctors, I'm talking to my insurance company, and literally I cannot find anything. I honestly do not remember what it is. Yes, I do. I do remember what it is. So while I was going through all of this, that man also kind of got to me, because I was like, maybe he is right, and maybe I just need to like fix my learning strategies and like how I'm actually studying, because admittedly, I had no idea how to study going into college. So because of that, I went to one of the other services that Vanderbilt offers, which is, there are too many offices, but basically this one is similar to, it was student health and wellness, or student wellness, or something like that. And there they actually went through different coping strategies. They have like massages, they have like group sessions where you can talk to people, and they also have specific strategy coaching sessions to deal with different issues, and one of those is study habits and study like tasks. So you would meet up with one of their providers like every week or every other week, or however often they scheduled you in for. And through doing that and talking to the man who I was seeing there, he told me that Vanderbilt actually offers these learning assessments, but not through Peabody or anything like that, which I'm still confused about why the Peabody people didn't tell me this to start off with. It's fine. But actually through the student like mental health services, they actually did learning assessments, which was really annoying to find out in like February. So after that, I went through and I set up a meeting with one of the providers at the PCC, UCC, whatever they're called now, the University Counseling Care Center. I don't know. Vanderbilt really likes rebranding for some reason. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense. They just want to confuse everyone. But that's not the point. So I got in with a really cool doctor. Not gonna say her name because obviously privacy. But so she was completely the opposite of this man. She was very nice, very understanding, and she was absolutely disgusted by my story of dealing with this other therapist. And so I set up 3 different, was it 3? It was 3 or 4 different appointments with her that I had to work around my schedule, and because of that I ended up doing these tests over a month, which means that by the time that I was actually done with them, it was like the end of March, early April, something like that. So basically the end of the school year. And they were interesting tests. There was nothing like what I had gone through previously. She was extremely nice. She was extremely caring. The tests were not necessarily challenging, but they made me think, and I actually had to do like different memory tests, and there was this one that I hated the most. So it was like you had to sit in front of a computer screen. You weren't supposed to look away from the screen, and you had like big like old early 2000s style like earmuffs on, and every time that a certain number popped up, you were supposed to hit enter to acknowledge that you had seen the number, and they would like alternate the different numbers, or they would just keep coming at you, and every time that you missed it, it would beep. And this was honestly the real test to show whether or not I had ADHD, because This test was like 20 minutes long on its own. This is the only one that we did for that specific session. And I sat there and my eyes kept crossing and I zoned out and I kept looking out the mirror, and every time, out the window, and every time I did that, the thing would beep in my ear and I would jump, and then I would like hit the button, and if you hit the button when it's not time to hit it, it beeps again, and I was so irritated and agitated, and that was the truth. That was the real telltale that I had ADHD. But anyway, so this ended up good because the diagnosis isn't necessarily good. So I was already diagnosed with Tourette's, but Tourette's itself isn't specifically a learning disability or a learning disorder. ADHD, however, can be considered one because it's difficult to focus. And I also had like a low saturation limit on how I could actually intake new material. So I am really good at absorbing like information up to a certain point, and after that it's done. And so because of that, all-nighters and cramming at the last second just would not work for me because of that. So I got these 2 diagnoses, and then after that they had to go through the SAS office that I was talking about earlier, who actually approves whether or not you can have accommodations. So it was not until after I had already finished my freshman year that I was able to get any sort of accommodation when I needed it that entire time before, which was extremely frustrating. But overall, I found that it was extremely helpful because the following semesters were so much better in terms of like work and taking tests and things like that. There are other things that weren't as good, but we won't go into that in this specific video because we'll talk about it later. So I have actually since then gone to different therapists at Vanderbilt, like through the students like counseling care center, and then also through external services that were still through Vanderbilt, because later on my insurance ended up being through Vanderbilt. And so through them I found that it was pretty easy to be matched with a provider, because they kind of did a little assessment, and from there they would match you with who they thought would be the best. And if you thought that that person wasn't really helping you, you have the option to be able to switch or to ask to see a different provider. I personally never had to do this because my first provider was really good. The reason why I ended up stopped seeing her is because Vanderbilt has a limit on how many times you can see your provider in a specific year or semester or something like that. But basically, at the time that I needed it, it just wasn't enough. And so from there, I was actually referred to a separate outside facility that was like a holistic care facility. And so I also did physical therapy and other things like that in that organization. And that was actually super easy to get into once I got the referral, because the wait list can be extremely long, which is another discouraging factor when it comes to therapy, is the wait list, like I was talking about earlier. And since then, my most recent therapist was super chill. I really enjoyed talking to her, even though I set my appointments to be really early in the morning. She really felt like a friend that I could just kind of vent to, and then, but it was like with that friend that makes you really, really, really think about yourself and like, are you sure about that? Or how did that make you feel? Or, but why did you do that? Or wait, go back and talk about that one again. Just so a friend who would actually hold you accountable is basically how I felt with my most recent therapist, and she was really cool, and I very much enjoyed talking to her. She was also a younger one, so technically, hair, get out of my face. So technically she wasn't actually a licensed therapist yet. She was still in school, but she was one of the most understanding professionals that I had spoken with thus far. I personally have never had a black provider, but so my most recent provider was a very short white blonde lady, and she was so cute, and she was super chill, and she was honestly of the therapists that I've talked to the most like culturally competent one, and she like laid it out at the very beginning if I felt that I wanted a Black provider, someone else who might understand me a little bit better, to let her know, because they have other providers that would be able to help. And I told her that I would try her first because obviously the wait list and stuff, and I really just needed help at that time. And that ended up being a pretty good decision for me because she was extremely helpful, especially in those last couple of months of school before everything shut down. And so because everything shut down, I was initially seeing her through telehealth, which was an interesting experience because we actually had like our sessions through Zoom, which was really cool. And so we did that actually until I moved back from Tennessee. And the reason why we had to stop is because there are like licensing issues. And so if you're in a different state, they actually can't do telehealth procedures with you. I don't know why, since it's over the internet anyway, but for some reason, lawsuits across state lines is not a thing they want to do. And because of that, I had to stop seeing her once I moved back home. And so, yeah, all of that to say, I really recommend therapy just in general. I don't think that you need to necessarily have a mental disorder or a mental illness or a learning disorder to see a therapist. They really are just there to help you figure out different things that are going on in your life. If you're having like issues with a friendship or a relationship or at your job, or you have some childhood trauma that you haven't dealt with before, they're really, really, really good at helping you sort all of that out. It is not easy, not in the slightest, but if it's easy, then it's probably not working. Like in a lot of my therapy sessions, I ended up crying just because it's very emotional to talk, especially someone that you don't really know anything about. But it's really emotional to talk to someone about all those different issues, and you may have not even known how sensitive of a topic it was to you until you started talking to them. And again, it takes some time to figure out what kind of therapist you want to see, or who, like, in terms of their background, their understanding, their profession, and that's very, very important. And it's also important to know that there's a difference between like your traditional like psychologist and psychiatrist. One of them can give you medicine, the other one cannot, and medicine may be necessary depending on what issues you're going through. But anyway, guys, I hope that you found this helpful. I know that a lot of this was rambling and it was almost like a story time. Almost. I feel like it wasn't as interesting as a lot of the ones that you'll find on this platform, but that's not really the point of this video. This video is supposed to be more informative and entertaining, but if you got both, that's great. Anyway, I will talk to you guys next time. Bye!